Welcome, I'm Valerie Hector, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you 4 simple patterns for a square beaded rope, necklace, bracelet, beaded beads, whatever you like. The first pattern is a single horizontal stripes, the second is double horizontal stripes, the third is checkerboard, and the fourth is vertical stripes. You will find a PDF, a free PDF, showing these patterns and more on my website at valeriehector.com. You can download them for free. You can also download in that same file a template, a blank template, so you can create your own patterns in these cylinder seed beads or round seed beads. Okay, so that's valeriehector.com. Look for square beaded rope patterns. That's the name of the file. Okay. So today we're going to make a short sample showing these 4 patterns. We're only going to do a few rows of each just to get the basics concept, the basic pattern going, and then you can take it from there. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using cylinder seed beads. I'm using a barbecue skewer, a wooden barbecue skewer. Mine is 2.5 millimeters in diameter. You can use one that's 3 millimeters in diameter. Mine I trimmed down. It's only about 4.5 or 5 inches long. So get a wooden barbecue skewer or a metal rod and trim it down because you don't need a great big long one. Okay, I'm using a size 10 beading needle. I'm using Coats & Clark's hand quilting thread. Why? Because, you know, I started in 1988 going full-time as a beader, and this is the only thread that I found that was on the market at the time that would actually work. Nowadays, you have so many thread options. Use the thread that you like to use with cylinder seed beads, okay? Now, I'm going to assume that you've already taken my tutorial on getting started with the square beaded rope. So I'm not going to go through every single thing here, like attaching the thread to the skewer. That's, you know, pretty basic. Let's get started, okay? The first pattern we're going to do, I'm going to move away these other samples here and just keep these 2 samples. So, and we know it's a good day when the beads start to spread out right away. You know, it's a sign of good things to come. We are going to start with single horizontal rows first. Okay, you already know, if you've taken the tutorial on getting started with square beaded rope, that you start by adding 3 beads, okay? Always 3 beads. And you already know it can be rough getting started, right? Pretty much with any technique. The techniques you don't begin to see things working out until a little bit later. Like in this case, maybe row 4, row 5, things start looking good. They start looking regular and systematic. And as I've said in other videos, with these beads, with the square beaded rope, on a good day, if I'm really paying attention and I don't make too many mistakes, I can bead 2 inches an hour, okay? And so now all we do is we switch. We finished row 1. For row 2, we're switching to the purple beads. Add 3 beads. Pretty much everything, I'm going to slide this up a little. Pretty much everything else stays the same. It's just the colors that we're alternating, right? Not hard at all. You also know, if you've watched the tutorial or other introductory videos for this technique, that this was invented in South Africa by the Zulu people, actually women of the Masinga group of Zulu people. Nobody knows when. Information has pretty much been lost, or if it's been preserved, it hasn't been published that I know of, but that's okay. I reverse engineered a piece. Let me show you, I think, just in case you haven't seen other videos. This is the piece that I reverse engineered a long time ago, many years ago. I almost cut it apart, but in the end I didn't. I was able to figure out how it works. So I'm glad I didn't have to cut it apart. Anyway, you won't see too many antique pieces like that on the market. If you do, just buy it. You know, it's so nice to have the real thing in your studio to inspire you. All right, so I'm going to do a few more rows and then we're going to move on to the next pattern. There is no other technique that I know of that will make a square beaded tube. At least I haven't seen one, so this is pretty cool. This same technique will also produce tubes that are triangular in shape, that have 5 sides, so they're pentagonal, that have 6 sides, hexagonal, and more. The only thing is, what I found out is, the more sides you add, in most cases, the stiffer the tube gets, more rigid. So it's hard. It becomes a little bit harder to use. You still can. And the other thing is that the larger tubes, like hexagonal beaded tube, you're really going to want to use something inside of it, like, you know, a piece of soft rope or something as an armature that you can bead around, and that will make the piece really flexible. So I'll get to all of those things in future videos. You know, I'm hoping that I'll make some good typical mistakes here while I'm working so that you'll be able to see how to fix them. And you'll see what you'll learn how to spot them soon after they develop. There have been times when I'm making a square beaded rope and I notice that 2 inches behind me, or 3 or 4, I've made a really bad glaring error. And I sit there and think, should I undo it? And the answer is yes. And I always do undo it. You know, I go back, I unthread, pull out the threads, pull out the stitches, and work my way back to where the mistake happened. So, you know, when possible, we want to pay enough attention that we prevent mistakes or catch them right soon after they happen. All right, maybe a couple more rows and then we'll move on to double horizontal stripe. It is amazing to me how these cylinder seed beads work so well in this technique. In fact, to be honest, I wouldn't even kind of bother making these ropes in any other beads but the cylinder seed beads, not just because of the color choices, but because of how beautifully they render this technique. I mean, there's just nothing quite as precise. And I'm sure that if the Zulu women who invented the square rope, if they could just see the colors of the cylinder seed beads, that they too would love to use them. But they didn't have access back then to the cool beads that we have now. All right, what have we got on our sample? Okay, we have one more row of red, so I'll go ahead and add it. And then we're switching to double horizontal stripes, which you'll probably already know how to do once you've seen single horizontal stripes. Today is an especially messy bead day, but that's okay. It means we're really working. All right, so here's a mistake. Okay, this is very easy to not notice. What's happened here is that I have inadvertently put the needle through the second bead, okay, here, when I should have put it through the first bead. This can happen so quickly, and you add 3 beads, you keep going, and then 3 inches later you realize that something is really wrong. Okay, so that's a common error, that you accidentally insert the needle through the second bead, and you need to insert it through the first bead. Okay, so watch out for that. There are a few other common errors that I'm sure, I hope I'll make as we keep going here. Now, with my square rope necklaces, I have liked to separate each color band with a little bit of black. You don't have to do that. As it happens here, the 2 black separator rows become part, you see, they get right worked into the double horizontal stripes. But you see, I use them quite a bit. Here they are, here, here, and here. You don't have to use them. I just like it separating the color bands in that way. And if you really like these colors, these bead colors, I will put their numbers in the notes below for this video. So if you want to order some, you can. These are really specific colors that I like. I like other colors too. But somehow these go well together for a square rope. When you're here's not a mistake, but you know, here's something that's good to know. When you feel like something is maybe going wrong, pull out the stitch you just added. Take a closer look. Okay, yeah, what's gone wrong here is really simple. I'm going to try to show it to you. Somehow, I don't know how, I put my needle the wrong way through this loop of beads. That's going to cause a very weird distortion in the pattern. So I'm going to put my needle back through this loop. Okay, and there we go. All right, so that's 2 mistakes so far that we've caught right away, which really speeds up your enjoyment. It also speeds up your progress. So then you too can do 2, maybe even, who knows, 3 inches an hour. You'll probably end up being a lot faster than I've ever been. All right, so now we're going to add 2 rows of this purple, fabulous metallic purple, kind of a violet. Now something is weird here. I don't know what it is. So I'm going to pull this out a little. I just want to know that I haven't made a mistake. Nope, I haven't. Everything's fine. Just need to push it up firmly against the skewer. That's all. And after we finish this segment of pattern, these double horizontal stripes, I'm going to take a second and show you another way that you can pattern these exact same colors, that you can structure them in your tube. As I think I mentioned in another video many years ago, when these cylinder seed beads first came on the market, it was a long time ago, I couldn't afford them. A friend of mine sent me samples. She sent me a color chart. She'd gotten it from a dealer she knew. She had an extra one. And I couldn't believe how beautiful they were. To me, they looked like stars, little stars that had dropped out of the sky. And I was new in my business. That must have been about 1990 or so, late 80s, 1990. And I couldn't afford them at the time. I wanted to use them so much. And back then, only a few dozen colors were available in the US. So I decided that someday I will use them. I will figure out how to afford them. And the day that my first order arrived for these cylinder seed beads, it was a very happy day. It's kind of amazing to me to see that nowadays we can order, I don't know, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of colors on the internet and have them delivered right away. I think it's great. So when I haven't used a color before, I just order a small amount. I'm sure you do that too, so that I can test it in real life, see if it's as good as it looks. And often they are, but sometimes they aren't. Whoops. But I did get to the point in my business where I was able to order by the kilo, and that too was a very happy day. I mean, I always stayed kind of conservative. I didn't order too much, but pricing is better by the kilo, as I'm sure you know. All right, making progress here. This is easy. And you know, I'm running out of thread here, so probably before too long, I'm going to show you how to tie off an old thread and add on a new thread. That's also contained in my Getting Started with Square Rope video, but I might as well show you again here. It's really handy to know just how to do it, so you will not make the mistakes I made of not securing threads well enough. And so 6 or 8 or 10 inches down the road, the piece starts to unravel. And it's very hard to fix once it starts to unravel. So a word to the wise. Be really careful when you're tying off and adding on for this technique. All right, a few more sets of black here. And then I want to show you this other approach, design strategy. You may have thought of it, you may know it already, but you might like to see it. The two of them side by side, you know, putting the colors in horizontal bands versus putting the colors along the sides. Okay, there's a big difference. Back when I was selling these ropes, I still do a little. I found the early ones I made structured the colors along the 4 sides. But I did find that my customers, when I introduced these bands of color, that they love them. They really love them. And I started selling only the bands of color. I'm going to try to finish this row, if I can, using this same thread, and then I'm going to tie off the thread. So you can see that I had a length of thread that I'm going to guess was about 24, 28 inches long in the beginning. And this is what it produced. I'm going to say that this is certainly an inch, maybe 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches. Okay, let's tie off the thread, okay? So it isn't enough just to go through a few beads and then snip the thread. That's a recipe for disaster, and it won't show up right away. It'll show up later. So here's what we're going to do. Our strategy is navigate down through 6 or 8 beads in the corner, all right? And then cross over through one side, and then cross over through another. And you can do more crossing over, more going down from there if you want to. But this is what is going to prevent your square rope from coming apart on you or on your customer. All right, here now, it can be easier. We'll also learn how to slide this down. So you have to slid down the square rope slightly off the skewer. That makes it a little easier to get through these corners here. Yeah. Okay. Pull gently. Don't pull harshly. Why? Because you'll distend. You'll cause this area to get too tight. All right, so always pull gently here. Now I'm going to navigate across. You know, sometimes you can go through 2 beads, sometimes 1. Go kind of slowly, get it right. And you'll be happy you did later on when it doesn't unravel. All right. There we go. And because we're near the bottom, we have the option here of even stitching into the bottom, right? So, yeah, why not? So the bottom wants to come off the tube. That's okay. The thread pile, slip it back on, work it back on. It will go. There. All right. So, you know, we can go through some of these threads here, whatever. That's kind of an additional touch. It's not necessary. And then I'm going to snip the thread, and then I want to show you this other way of designing the colors. This is the other way. This is what we're doing now. We have bands of color, right? Everyone loves these. But this other way is you put one color pattern on each side, okay? So this is what this approach looks like. And I don't know if I'll do a separate video on this or not because it's just so self-explanatory. I might, right? But here's what's so cool about this. Let's say you turn this into a necklace. Let's say it's 18, 19 inches long. Let's say you put a clasp on it. Before you close the clasp, at either end, you grab it and you just turn it a little, okay? And what happens is when you wear the necklace, all these different colors show, right? You can twist it a lot and really make all the colors show. But that is what is so cool about this pattern. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to add on a new thread, okay? And if you watch the video on getting started, you already know that you want to make a knot in the bottom of this thread. Not a huge knot, just a knot, okay? And then we're going to go back in to the sample. We're going to, doesn't matter where, but you want to be the better part of an inch below the upper row. Okay, I'm going to show you how to navigate to where we need to be. Insert the needle through any bead in a corner, about an inch or so below your working edge. Keep going up, go up a little more, and then do what you did to tie off the thread. Cross over. All right, cross over a side. Go slowly so that you don't break a bead. Cross the corner, the edge, corner. Cross this side. And where do we want to be? What we have to think about, what is our destination? What does our destination look like? Here's what it looks like. So there are 4 sides, right, on our working end. There's only one side that's shorter. It starts out shorter than all the others. Its first bead is lower than all the others. This is that bead right here. And that's where we want to be, the lowest number one bead in all of our 4 sides is what we're shooting for. Now, right now, where are we? We're here, okay? And we want to navigate our way up, 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 up until not here, but the bead just next to it, okay? Black is not the best way to show this. However, I'll also be showing it in other tutorials. So again, this is our target bead. This is what we want to be coming out of. But before we can come out of that, we've got to come out of this one and work our way into the other one, okay? And here we are in the corner. We're in one of the corners, the corner just to the left of the bead we want to get through to keep beading. So we're going to go up only until this bead, which is immediately to the left of our target bead, okay? And I'll probably do a separate video on adding new thread. Now here's a nice little error, not critical, but I want you to notice that somehow the thread has left a loop. There's a loop of thread right here. You know, not critical, but it wouldn't be hard to just pull up on the thread gently and straight get rid of that loop now while we can, okay? Now we're going to go through our target bead here and pull. At this point, I don't know, it might not be a bad idea to re-wax the thread, but I'm going to skip that because we are going to go into checkerboard, all right? Checkerboard can be thought of just 3 triple horizontal row, alternating. I mean, they skip over, right? But I love checkerboard. Checkerboard comes in so handy. Let me show you. Let's see, can I show you? Yeah. Here's on one of the long beaded ropes I made. Here's checkerboard. Isn't that cool? Just really graphic and beautiful. All right, so let's learn checkerboard. Let's move these guys over. And I want to move them where you can still see them, but they won't be in our way. How can we do that? Yeah, maybe here and here. All right, checkerboard, here we come. So it's 3 beads of turquoise for this side. And we right away push up. We're right away going to add 3 beads of metallic teal on this side. Once you start the checkerboard pattern, it helps you keep going. It's really easy. Okay. More turquoise. And more teal. All right, so these are our base rows here, and we're going to build up from them, okay? So on top of this 1 row of turquoise, I'm going to put 2 more. On top of this 1 row of teal, we're going to add 2 more, etc. And each time I push a set of 3 beads up against the skewer, I kind of straighten them out, you know, push and pull them until they sit correctly. Because if they don't sit correctly, sometimes it's because there's an error present, right? So again, we do what we can to notice errors right while we're making them, or soon after. This really isn't an error, but it happens. The thread gets looped around the bottom of the skewer. We just unloop it. Great. Now, the first 3 rows of our checkerboard are in place. We're only going to add 6 rows altogether. So we're going to add 3 more rows real quickly. So we're going to stop with the turquoise now and switch to metallic teal, because that's what a checkerboard looks like. It's alternating squares of color. Here we switch to turquoise. I have to move our circles. You know, I want to show you another common mistake. So I'm going to make it on purpose here, just so you're prepared. Another common mistake is you're not really paying attention, and you accidentally add only 2 beads instead of 3, right? And you push them up and you think everything's fine. This is what it looks like, okay? Really common. I've done this so often. And then you keep going, and then you realize something's wrong. Well, look for that error too, okay? Try to avoid making it. I've done it many times, so now you don't have to. Okay, here's another potential, not an error, but a glitch. See how this turquoise row here is acting kind of strange? Like it's gotten a little loose. Now to fix that, we rotate the dowel, pull up on this set of beads here, pull up on the next set, pull up on the next set. And then you'll find out that these beads go back into alignment. In other words, we're adjusting the tension within a row, okay? So that's another really useful trick to know. Now, why did I add, okay, here's another mistake. It's great that I'm making so many mistakes for you. Why did I add 3 teal beads when this is clearly a turquoise section, okay? Adding the wrong colors. Yes, I've done it many times. I think, you know, we get into a state of flow and we're not paying full attention. And so we make these mistakes. But good, we've gotten quite a few. We've worked through quite a few mistakes here in this video. And I'm sure I'll be making more in future videos. We're almost done with this section. Then we're going to add 2 rows of black and then move into the vertical stripe. So these are all really easy patterns. In other videos, I'll show you patterns that just are a little bit harder. Oh, we're done. Okay, we have 3, and I've learned to count. You know, in Checkerboard, I've learned to count before I finish, before I move on to the next section. Do I really have the right number of rows? Okay, or has something gone wrong? Okay, we are ready to move on. We're going to add black, 2 rows of black here. Now, as we're working, you probably noticed that occasionally we get a splinter coming off of the wooden skewer, and that's because I've stuck my needle into the skewer. So that's an argument for using a metal rod, like, you know, an aluminum rod that you can get at your hardware store, an aluminum tube. You know, most hardware stores carry them. They're like, I don't know, 10 or 12 or 16 inches long. All you have to do is get one that's, for this technique, using these beads, get one that's 3 millimeters in diameter. Okay. There's something about wood, though, the organicness of it, that I really like. Maybe I like the color, too. All right, so we're ready to go on to single vertical stripe, and that's this pattern here. Beautiful. I realize at this point that I did not tell you that these silvery beads here are actually not made of glass. I should have told you at the outset. They're antique French aluminum beads that I got many years ago. They're faceted aluminum. They're roughly a size 15, and you can't get them anymore. I mean, I haven't been able to get them for years. So I'm living off of the few that I have left. Anyway, there are size 15 Japanese metal beads, I'm pretty sure, on the market. If I can, I'll put a link to them below. I just love the contrast that they make, this shimmering silver section here, this band, the gentleness that they give off, and also the detail. Because they're smaller, they give extra detail here. You can also use regular size 11 silver beads, right? Or any other color that you want. So let's get started doing vertical stripe. I'm going to add, it's the same, there's nothing different. I'm adding 2 of these antique French aluminum beads and 1 black bead and going through. Yes, it's true that this section of the rope will be a little bit narrower than the other sections. I think you can see that here. It's a little bit narrower, but you know, it's not that much narrower. And I'll tell you that you get more visual contrast by using this, by varying your bead size a little. So I think it's worth it. And I'll just do, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 rows here, and then we'll be done. All right, what's going on here? I feel like this is a mistake in the making. So we just, oh yeah, sure it is. Why? Because I'm coming out of the second bead in this set of 3 when I should be coming out of the first one. Okay, great. So we caught another mistake before it did any damage. So I'm just, oops, reversing course here and pulling back out of that second bead. So I can go into the first one. Okay, and here's, well, there's, you know, you could just pull the beadwork off of the cylinder, but what the heck, I'll do it the old-fashioned way. All right, so now we're in the right place. And, you know, I think especially with respect to the black beads, is easy to make a mistake. So just pay a little extra attention when you're working with black beads. Great. All right, so here's row 1. It's looking good. Go through that aluminum bead there. Add 3 beads. Ooh, and okay, great. Here's another mistake. I added 3 aluminum beads. I should have added 2. Wonderful. All right, making sure I have got my black bead on there. And inadvertently, I have gone through the first bead in the next section, which is ideal. So that's a plus. That's not an error. That's a bonus. It just happened by accident. If you want, you can make it happen every time. I have never done that because I guess I'd rather be accurate and slow. All right, now, are we forming a knot here? It looks like, yeah. That knot would cause trouble. So, as an experienced beader, or even as a beginner, you know already to look for knots. To try and avoid them or undo them right away. Great. See, something doesn't look right here. I don't know what, but it is right. Okay, we just need to, I undid the stitch, or I pulled it out a little, and then I put it back. I pushed it back up against the dowel, and just by doing that, I could see that, no, it's okay. Nothing's wrong. Yeah, the fact that I'm getting knots or getting kinks in the thread is a sign that it might be a good idea to re-wax the thread now. So I'm going to do that for a little. 1 second here, because I prefer not to have knots and kinks. And why did these old French aluminum beads get used many years ago? Do you know? They got used because they were so lightweight. They got made because they were so lightweight. In the days of the flappers, when women were wearing these beautiful silk dresses, designers could have their artisans stitch these beads onto the dresses, and not only would the dresses shimmer with reflected light, but they wouldn't be heavy to wear because the beads aren't heavy. They're actually lighter than glass beads. So that's why these old French aluminum beads were probably made in such quantity. I bought all I could get many years ago, but that said, there weren't that many to buy. If you ever see them come up online, antique French aluminum beads, buy them and just keep them, because you never know when you might want them. Whoops. Especially in this size, size 15. Larger sizes are more common because those were sometimes used as crimp beads. But this tiny size, buy them. Buy them right away. By quantity. All right, a few more rows and we'll be done with this tutorial, and you can move on to the next, or you can move on to making yourself a beautiful square rope necklace in these patterns, using colors of your choice, creating variations for these patterns. Many variations are possible. Oops. This poor little wooden dowel has served me for so many years that it's actually, oh, I went through it. I actually went through the dowel. But I do think that I've used it for so many years that it's weakening on me. Or I've weakened it, so I'm just going to try to pull the needle back out of the dowel. There we go. And I'm gonna have to get myself a new dowel, skewer. I call it a dowel sometimes. A new barbecue skewer or a dowel. But there's a lot to be said for tools that you use over and over that kind of sort of start to acquire, I don't know, part of you or something, start to fit your hands better. They adapt to your hands. I think people who use hand tools a lot, like machinists, or people who work with metal, I think they notice that if you use the same pliers for 20 years, it takes on, it just becomes so comfortable, like a pair of shoes you've worn in, that you don't want to let go of that tool even if it wears out. And I think that's how I am with this barbecue skewer or dowel. See this black bead here? It's a little bit, I don't know, large, right? Oversized. And so for a second there, I thought it was an error, but it's not. It's just an oversized bead. You can grade them out if you want. Don't use them. But in a way, they're part of the charm of the piece. You know, that proves it's a handmade piece. There are minor imperfections. And that's okay. All right. Now let's see. In this piece, I did a little more. In this one, a couple more rows, and we'll call it a day. There we go. Let's pretend that we got that section to be as long as this one is, and let's call it a day. And I've made a beautiful mess of the beads. Now they do look, really do look like stars, you know, in the night sky. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you for taking the time to learn this from me, and I'll see you soon. Happy beading.